All right, so we are going to switch the strings on a new player Strat we just got from the 9s that they came with over to 10s. And I'm just doing this on my desk here at home. And so we're going to switch this over a set of 10 gauge strings and then set the guitar up to something close to Fender factory specifications, but something that I like. And so here's what we're gonna use. First, we have the giant yellow towel with the alligator on it. Right, so that's just laid on the desk, protect the beautiful Lake Placid blue finish. And this is a Lake Placid blue player Strat from Adorama. They were having a pretty good deal on these and the Tellys, both in Lake Placid blue, for $5.19. And I think actually at one point they were slightly cheaper than that, maybe $4.99. But it's a great deal, and I did an unboxing, which is in the other videos, and you can look and see the initial impressions, but it was very favorable. But anyway, like most Fender guitars, this comes set up with 9s, which I really don't like. It's hard to make a guitar play right for me with 9s. They're just too thin, and I feel like I get tangled up in them when I'm playing. Of course, I'm really a bass player, so when you're used to playing a P bass with medium action and medium flat wound strings, 9s on a Stratocaster feel pretty light. So anyway, here's what we're going to use. Got a set of 10 gauge Fender strings, which as far as I can tell are really just D'Addario XLs or something pretty close to it. I think that Fender and Gibson both claim that D'Addario makes strings for them to their specifications, which is possible. If anybody's big enough and orders enough strings to have D'Addario do that, I guess it would be Gibson and Fender. But anyway, I think these even have the colored ball ends, although I don't know if the colors match up with the D'Addarios. Fender might have their own colors. But we're using that. I'm going to use a pair of orange-handled wire cutters, an old set of Craftsman wire cutters. You could use other colors. Got a red Ernie ball. No, I'm sorry, this is not an Ernie ball. This is actually a Jim Dunlop string winder, which is pretty old. Again, you could use a different color. Going to use a string action gauge just to try to get this something close that I can measure, so I'm not just feeling it. And then the Allen wrenches that actually came with the guitar. This is going to be for the truss rod, and then this is for the bridge, the smaller one. I have an 8/1000 of an inch feeler gauge, automotive feeler gauge, which I'm going to set the relief to. We're going to start there. That seems to work pretty well on Fenders for me. What else? Oh, and my trusty Danny Gatton Fender celluloid pick. I think Danny actually used the white ones, which the last time I looked were fairly collectible. People were asking big money for the white ones on Reverb. It's kind of funny. But I think these play the same. Maybe not. I've never played the white one. If anybody's played the white one, maybe comment and tell us if they're different than the tortoise ones in some way. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started and see if we can get this. Got some junk here on the desk that's kind of in the way. Normally I'd just put this thing in my lap and do it while I'm sitting here, but I wanted to lay it up here so it'd be easier to video. But I'm going to take the arm off first. So, because I think that's just going to be in the way. We'll go ahead and get rid of that. Oh, we'll also use a Craftsman Phillips head screwdriver. Going to need that too to take the back cover off, because we're going to have to adjust these springs for the tremolo claw to keep the tremolo somewhere close to what it is now as far as the angle. It's set up to float a little bit. I haven't done anything to this. This just came in and was unboxed. You can see the tremolo there. It's got some room to move up and down. It's pretty stiff without the bar, and I'm trying to do it with my finger, but you can hear. And that's pretty cool. I'll probably leave it like that. I'll try to get something. I think the spec is maybe 1/8 of an inch from the back of the base of the bridge plate here to the body, but I'm just going to eyeball that. I think you could set that however you wanted. And I'm sure this has just the 3 factory springs in it, so I'll definitely have to tighten the claw up with 10s. Hopefully the 3 springs will be able to hold it with the 10s with the claw tightened up slightly. So, and it's set up pretty well right out of the box. The intonation is really close. The string action's pretty low. It's at around 3/64 at the 12th fret. I think Fender want you to measure at the 17. I always measure at the 12. I think you'll find it's not that much different. But I like the action a little higher. And what I'm going to set it to is I'm going to start with 8/1000 on the feeler gauge for the neck relief, and then 5/64 on the high E, and kind of graduate it down to 4/64. I'm sorry, 5/64 on the low E and graduate it down to 4/64 on the high E string. And you know what would be nice? One of those little things that you put the guitar neck in to hold it up. I don't have one of those, so I'm probably just hang it off the edge of the desk here and just use it that way. I've done a lot of these just in my lap, so it's not going to be too difficult to do it like this. One of the things, I'm not going to take all the strings off at one time because it's just going to deck the bridge out and it's going to make it that much harder to get it back where it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start replacing these one at a time, I think. And then as the bridge starts to pull up, I may start to take the tension off the strings a little bit and go ahead and adjust the spring to bring the springs in the back to sort of bring the angle of the bridge back down. But we'll see how that goes. The other thing too, I'm not going to try to take these off. I'm not going to reuse these strings. It's really a pain trying to get them off and reuse them anyway. I generally just cut them. So, and I cut it somewhere about here. I don't like to leave short pieces of string if I can help it because they just get dropped and caught up in the carpet. And I have a really dumb Dalmatian that would probably eat guitar strings if he could find one. So I'm going to toss these. We have a black wastebasket here, but you could use a different color if you like. So let's go ahead and pull these out. Again, we're going to do these one at a time. And actually, before I go any further, I think I'm going to go ahead and just pull the back plate off too, and just get that out of the way because that's going to have to come off to adjust the tremolo springs with the claw. This is straightforward. This is really, any guitar player ought to be able to do basic setups. Instead of paying somebody to do it. It's really not that hard to do. It takes a little bit of experience. I've done a lot of guitars. I worked in a music store for about 10 years and did all the guitar work there. I'm not a professional luthier. A lot of stuff I just had to figure out along the way. This is sort of pre-internet, and I live in a small town. But yeah, setting up a guitar without just a basic setup, changing string gauges or setting intonation, action, those kinds of things are pretty simple to do, especially if you have the correct tools and some things to measure what you're doing instead of just eyeballing it. You can do that. I eyeball things for years without measuring anything. Taking the back plate off, just a piece of plastic. I've already pulled you can hear my dog barking maybe out in the background. There's no one here, and he is probably expecting dinner. Someone should have fed him by now, probably. Yeah, I went ahead and pulled the plastic off. I really like to get that off as quick as possible. Some people like to leave it on. This is what the back plate looks like. It's kind of interesting. You can see it looks like, and I don't know how else they would have done this because I'm sure they didn't just tape it off. It looks like, and I've seen the other player series guitars, specifically Strats with the springs in the claw on the back, but you can see there's no finish under here. It's interesting. It looks like they finished the guitar and then routed I haven't had the pick guard off. I bet it's the same under the pick guard though, but they routed the guitar out after they finished it. That's interesting. Normally you'd see overspray in here in these cavities where the guitar was routed before it went to finishing. So it's kind of interesting they're doing that. While I have one string off and some tension off, and I'm actually going to bring another tool in, I'm going to use the larger Phillips head here. I'm going to go ahead and tighten this claw up just a little bit. And I guess one of the things you could do is just keep bringing it back up to pitch as you go, as you put the new strings on. This is pretty tight. I wonder if they drill these holes or if they just stop. Probably the prudent thing to do would be to take this thing apart, I don't know, and drill the hole in a little bit more. We'll see how it goes. If I crack something, I'll probably stop the video and you'll never see this. Or maybe you will. That'd be a good video. All right, so yeah, these are the colors on the Fender strings. I haven't looked at the D'Addarios in a while. I do have a set of D'Addario bass strings here that aren't on anything. But yeah, so are these the same as the D'Addario colors? So let's see. Let's bring another tool in. The old timer pocket knife. Let's do that. To open that, I need a pair of scissors. This is not the right tool for this. I'm sorry, you'll have to watch this. Actually, you know what? Before I cut into this, I'm gonna put the old timer pocket knife aside. This is a Ziploc bag. No, it's not. It looks like a Ziploc. You can look at that. Kind of fooled us with that. All right, let's just cut it. We're not going to reuse this bag. Kind of bugs me, but not having the correct tool. Transfer that to the wastebasket. Let's get these strings out. I don't love the way they get a little bit tangled up in these packages. I guess these colors are nice. You can see they've wrapped all these together. So you got to unwrap. So this is okay, so they do 2 strings at a time. That's right. 2 strings at a time on these. It's still a little bit annoying. I guess it makes packaging quicker. I miss the days where we got individual string packs for strings. I guess that's kind of useless. But so they're telling us that the 6th string is the gold one. So you can see I've got gold and red here. So A is going to be 5. Or I'm sorry, the 5th string is going to be red. So I'll just set this aside for now. And we'll go ahead and do the gold ball end 6th string or E string. Try not to scratch the guitar. Be a shame. Brand new guitar. You know, there's a lot of string here. You could probably put these on a baritone guitar. I guess it'd be the wrong gauge, but this is, you can see this, how much extra string is here. This seems to be more than normal. I think they try to save. Now, this is kind of a feel thing. As far as, so these are the standard Fender tuners that don't drop down. They're not the vintage style, but these actually go horizontally through the posts. You know, you don't, people lock these things. People have different winding techniques. None of that stuff seems, I don't do that. It does. I've never had any problems not doing it that way. I just kind of feel how much, I know about how much I'm going to pull up here. This may not show up very good on the camera, but I know about how much string I'm going to pull up here. I'm going to hold it. I've got it tight in the bridge back here. I know I've pulled all the slack out of it. I'm going to pull it up enough, and I'm going to grab the string, and I'm going to pull it this way, and I'm going to push the end. I'm holding the other end of it. Again, this is probably, see if we can adjust this up a little bit here so you can see the end of the headstock. May just do one like this so you can see it. But I'm going to pull. So I'm gonna hold the string up like this, and I'm gonna hold this tight, and I'm gonna sort of pull this way, pull them opposite of each other like that, and that's gonna lock the string in right there, right? So it's not coming out while I start to wind it. That makes it pretty simple to do. I've always done them this way, and I may have a little bit too much here. I don't string as many guitars as I used to. There's my red string winder. But we'll see. These are actually pretty tall posts. And the strings that are on here are all 3 to 4 winds that wraps around the post. So let's see how this goes. I'm gonna hold this down and do this. There we go. So you want to make sure that the business end of the string here is winding down and not over the top of this, right? I'm actually going to put, let's see. Got it caught up here just a little bit. Let me fix this, and then we'll be off to the races with the rest of them, I'm sure. Okay. And winding around the wrong way. Yeah, I like to see 2 to 2.5 wraps on the strings. I think that the higher strings are more important than the lower strings. For getting a few more wraps on, they're more likely to slip. So I'm gonna bring this up to pitch or something close to it. Doesn't have to be exact, but Now, the other thing I'm going to do now, I'm going to go ahead and pull this string a little bit and stretch the string. I don't think they really stretch that much unless you're using nylon strings. I think what's really happening, the string ends are getting sucked tight. It's getting sucked tighter up in the bridge. It's getting seated more, and then especially at the headstock end, it's just sucking up around this post. Everything's getting tighter. That's why the thing keeps going flat. I don't know how much actual stretching is going on. Maybe there's a little, but you know, it seems like if they were stretching, they just sort of stretch forever. But I'm going to pull it pretty good, and once in a while I break one doing this, but I like to get them seated. Then they stay in tune once you tune the thing up, as well as a vintage-esque Strat tremolo will stay in tune. You can hear it's going flat every time though. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and cut the string end off too. So I'm going to poke myself in the eye. Okay. And, you know, be interesting. So let's try the, we've got the little TC Electronic, this is the Unitoo. This isn't the fancy one that does all the strings at a time. This just does one string at a time. Actually got this for my daughter to use with her bass. And, but it just winds up sitting on the desk. I don't know how accurate it is. I have a Sonic Research, was it the ST200? That thing is very accurate. I use that when I'm setting intonation generally. But this will get pretty close. Okay, you can see I'm sharp on this, so that's good. All right, so tightening up the claw, even with the E string back up to pitch now, I'm a little bit sharp, so that's good because as I bring the other strings in, which are lower tension, it should bring it back to something somewhere close to what it is. I talked to a Fender guy once, one of the tech guys, and he said, oh, you should only really need to screw the claw in just a couple of turns to go from 9s to 10s, or when you change string gauges. I know I just set up, my brother just got a new, one of the new Strat American Ultras, and I had to crank that claw down quite a bit more. It actually came from Sweetwater. It actually came from Sweetwater with the bridge sitting up quite a bit higher though. So if this is sort of like this, that thing was more like that with the 3 springs in it. So that was kind of interesting. All right, let's get the red ball end A string. So I've got the red ball now, and let's put that through. It's actually harder to do on the desk here. It's easier to do just holding the guitar. I've set up a lot of guitars like this at midnight after a couple of beers, and just sitting here at the desk or at a desk. The other thing too that I like to do, I'm not going to try to get this over where I can show it, but so if this is the tuning key and this is oriented with the guitar, this is the post that's up. I like to have the string. Now, if you were doing a locking tuner, you might want the string going in like this because you don't want a lot of slack in the string, right, wrapping around the post. And you're going to lock it anyway as soon as you put it in, so you don't have to worry about getting the thing seated in the post just so you can start winding the string on. I like to orient it so the string is coming in like this though, so the hole would be I guess perpendicular to the neck. And then I can put the string in, and then when I pull it, it's gonna move it like this and sort of bend it over, and it's gonna hold it in place. And I've had good luck with that over the years. And I don't mind these tuners. I think the vintage tuners look nicer. You know, it's really more of a visual thing. I think these work fine. Vintage tuners are more like a bass tuner would be. I'm sure you all know what those are, where the string has to be cut and then the string stuck down to the top of the post and wound around. I really like the new locking tuners. I have those on a guitar. I've got a telly, American telly that came with I'm gonna talk and do this, getting them wound up wrong. I have an American telly that came with the locking tuners, the Fender locking tuners, and I really like those a lot. And actually, I have a Gretsch also, a Gretsch Jet that that has the Gretsch locking tuners, which I think are Gotos. And yeah, it's just so much easier to change strings than dealing with this. This is not as much fun as it used to be. Okay, I got it in here right now. One of the things I find annoying about this always annoyed me on basses. I don't like string through bridges, and of course you can't really help it with this. But like on let's say like on a P bass. And I know all the new American instruments, the American professionals, and going back to the American standards, I've got a jazz bass from the mid-90s that's like this too. So the strings are string through body. And what happens, if you had locking tuners, it probably wouldn't be as big an issue. But what happens, so you put the string up through the bridge, you put it on the tuner, you start to wind the string, and there's just no way to stop the string from getting twisted against itself as you turn it. So it's sort of like a spring, and that affects the tone. If you have a non-string through bridge, so you can get the string where it's about to pull itself tight, but where you still have a little bit of slack in the string. Let's say on a P bass, on a like a reissue P bass or an old one, where the strings are coming right through the back of the bridge. You can grab that string and push it through just a little bit, and it'll sort of correct itself. It'll kick back into a neutral position instead of being twisted against itself. There's just no good way to do that with string through basses. So I've never liked them, and I've got some. I've got an old Stingray from the 70s, the 77 Stingray that's got that. I don't like it. I preferred the newer Ernie Ball basses for that. The ones that were, I guess the newest version of their bass is still a bridge through string. I know they did the classics. I think those were string through body. But anyway, let's continue here. All right, it's getting pretty out of tune now. So I think I'm just going to continue changing the strings. Normally this would go a lot quicker when without trying to make a video. This is kind of new for me. I used to change strings all the time. I could change a set of strings really quick. The store I worked at, I'd throw it up on the counter, have a little neck thing to put it in, and I mean, it was quick and easy. And at that, you don't even care if you break a string then, because most of the strings we sold at that point were bulk strings that we got from Ernie Ball. So we had big tubes of them. I didn't break a lot of them, but I wouldn't have cared if I did. All right, so let's switch over to the D string now, which is going to be Seafoam Green, Candy Apple Red, Lake Placid Blue. So they use their traditional Fender colors for the ball names. This is kind of cool. I like that kind of thing. And I love the traditional Fender colors. And they have to be named that too. They can't be named something else and look the same. It's actually got to say Lake Placid Blue. This is harder to do while recording and talking than it looks. I see guys do this on YouTube, and it's Dave from Dave's World of Fun Stuff. Yeah, he's great. He can just chatter along the whole time and never seems to mess anything up or get distracted. Good for you, Dave. All right, so let's continue. Wind the string around the post. This is a lot less fun to do without the string winder. Those electric ones that kind of look like a drill or a drill driver, screwdriver. Those are pretty nice. Let's see where. Okay. We're not too far off considering what we're doing here, so let's go ahead and stretch this one out a little bit. Did we even stretch the A? I'm talking and not paying attention. All right, so we got 3 of the strings on. Let's continue. Got the D. I didn't take quite enough slack off that one. more slack off of them, so you don't have it pop back and hit you in the eye. Maybe this bridge, I tightened it a little bit. Maybe it's going to be pretty close with these 10s. All right, so the next color for the G string, the 3rd string, is going to be Seafoam Green. Seafoam. So they're using traditional color names. Is that Seafoam? I don't know. I don't think so, but they're calling it Seafoam, and that's cool. Good for them. Seafoam Green is a great color, and it needs to say Seafoam Green too. It can't just be the color like some guitar manufacturers. They have colors that look the same, you know, like they'll call Daphne Blue Pale Blue or Sonic Blue Pale Blue. It needs to say the color. I wonder if Fender, did they trade? I don't think they could trademark those color names, because those were manufacturers that, those paint manufacturers had that naming scheme before Fender ever used them. So I think other people can call them that. I don't think that's an issue. All right, so let's get this wound on. Actually, I like Surf Green a little better than Seafoam. It's less saturated, a little paler. They're both great. Yeah, those guitars now, the old ones, the original ones, are very rare to find guitars in those custom colors. You see a lot of sunburst ones. Well, not that's relative to vintage guitars, not in general, but you see a lot of sunburst. You see some whites and blacks. Lake Placid Blue is actually one of the more common custom colors from the 60s. It's interesting when you see Lake Placid, because the old ones were finished in nitrocellulose lacquer, and as the lacquer would be exposed to ultraviolet rays, it would turn green on top, which wouldn't be noticeable on a black guitar. But on Lake Placid Blue, it actually turns the guitars green. You see the old, and sometimes it's hard to tell what color they are if you see the old ones. Kind of cool, or not. Right. Moving right along. Took a little more tension off this time. Let's do the B string. Fender, you'll never watch this video, but if you did, I would tell you, consider sending these out with 10s instead of 9s. That would be really cool. I think they do it because it makes guitars play a little easier. And when people pick them up in the store, they go, hey, this thing plays really easy. So it makes them more likely to buy it, maybe. All right, so the second string is Graffiti Yellow. So did Fender actually have a 60s color that was a yellow? I'm trying to think, I don't remember one. In other words, they didn't have a 60s color name they could have used. They had to make something up, Graffiti Yellow. Is that a current or more modern Fender color? Perhaps. But there's the ball end, that's Graffiti Yellow. How about that? Well, let's see, I managed to get these. All right, sorry, I had to take a quick break there. Issue with the dog. So all fixed up now. And anyway, so we got the B string on and somewhere close to pitch. So let's go ahead and do the E string now. That thing just shot across the room somewhere. Here we go. Yeah, we don't want the Dalmatian to eat the string. Probably wouldn't be good. And I can't afford the vet bill. I'd rather buy more guitars than pay to have a string surgically removed from my dog. Right? Okay. All right. So, yeah, so the last color here, and what are they calling this? This is, Lake Placid Blue, same as the guitar. So, is that the same color? No, you can see it's not. It's really not close. Actually, this is probably closer to Daphne than it is Lake Placid. Maybe they should have just called it that. Come on, Fender. Use the right colors. Well, let's get it through the saddle. Here we go. I like these Fender vintage saddles. I just think they look cool. You know, do they work as well as the block saddles? I don't know. I don't care, actually. I'm not a professional guitar player. I played bass for years. and played a lot, and kind of am sick of playing bass now. And when I'm at home, I just noodle around on the guitars. And I have a few guitars. I really just like the gear. I think that's the only reason I still play, just because I enjoy the gear. It gives me a reason to buy gear and have gear. That's more fun to me than actually playing the things. Although I do enjoy that too. All right, the Lake Placid Blue E string is in place. Let's get it close. We didn't snap anything. You know, the bridge is actually probably a little flatter than it was. That's interesting. Let's tune it up and see what happens to the bridge, because we're flat everywhere. So I'm going to try to just, I'm not going to tune every string right now with the tuner. I'm just going to get it close by ear. Yeah, the bridge looks pretty. If it holds right there, that's not bad. It may not, because we're still. You know, it's probably a little bit more floating than I would like. I'm actually going to tune this down just a little bit. I'm going to tighten that claw up another turn and a half, I think. The good news is that once you get this set with the strings that you're going to play, you really shouldn't have to do it again, probably. I guess these strings, you know, this is interesting too. These look more like the vintage Fender springs, the stiffer ones. The Ultra that I just set up, I haven't worked on Strats in a long time. The Ultra that I just set up had the black springs in it. I think maybe those are lower tension. That may be why I had to tighten the claw up more on that one. I'd rather run this screwdriver through my hand, I think, than this pretty Lake Placid Blue finish. Be careful here. Let's try that, see where we are. Yeah, the routing looks beautiful on this, though. I know some of the YouTubers complain sometimes about dull router bits for when they open the guitars up and look at them. This had a sharp router bit. Yeah, that's actually, I may have tightened it up just a little bit too much. A little bit goes a long way. Bring it back out just a little bit. See where we are. Yeah, even stuff like the action. So once you get a guitar set up like this with the strings that you're going to play. Now, I know every string set is, if you ran it through some kind of scope and computer, there's no way that they're all exactly the same every time, but they're pretty close probably. And once you get a guitar like this set up with the strings you're going to play, if you just put the same strings on it, you really shouldn't have to reset the guitar up that often. Now this frets will wear if you play it a lot, and that's a different issue. But as far as the bridge, you know, the intonation, the action, the pickup height, the claws and the tremolo, the springs, I guess, will wear over time. But that stuff you shouldn't have to do it. And so really just seasonal adjustments for the truss rod once you get the thing set up is really all you ought to have to do. Where I live, it's about 100% humidity most of the time. That is pretty good. I don't think I'd want to go up any more than that, so I like that. It's about 100% humidity here most of the time, and so one good thing is that fret sprout's not really an issue here, and lots of people, and I've seen it before. The worst I ever saw was on a PV Cirrus bass when I lived in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, at a music store there. Tuscaloosa Music Was that the Tuscaloosa? Whatever. Anyway, there was a PV Cirrus, which was a nice instrument, but it had incredible fret sprout, and couldn't believe it. That is usually not an issue here. Just because we have so much humidity. And in the winter, the necks get a little bit straighter. So there's that. Well, hopefully this is not going to pull the bridge up too much. We're going to find out in just a minute. It's like trying to tune a Floyd Rose. And the other thing too, once you get this thing set up, when you change strings, it's better just to do them one at a time with a floating tremolo instead of taking them all off and then having to rebalance the tension of the springs and the strings. If you change one string at a time and you tune it to pitch, then you really shouldn't have to. You shouldn't have to try to find the pitch of the strings again because the bridge keeps moving on you. I mean, this is still going sharp, going flat down here. Because every time I tune a string, it's pulling the bridge up because it's floating, and it's knocking everything else out of tune. Go ahead and pull these strings a little bit, and we'll seat them or stretch them. Are we stretching them? Maybe. We're definitely seating them. I think the nut slot is okay as far as width for these strings, because what you'll find if it's too tight, is the tuner will be more jumpy as it's catching in the nut whenever you're trying to tune the thing, especially if it's way off pitch. You'll turn and it won't do anything, and then it'll kind of jump. That's how you know it's sort of getting stuck in the nut. And I could have put some graphite in these. That probably would have been the thing to do while I had the strings off. A little pencil lead, that does help with tuning stability with the tremolo. Helps a little bit with this synthetic bone nut. What is synthetic bone? I haven't cut into one of these. I've read from people that have that the material is pretty hard. Don't think it's just a cheap plastic. Something harder than that. I can't believe bone would be any more expensive. No, I mean, really, when you're buying things in this price range, even if they added another $5 to the cost of the guitar, who would know? And they could put a bone nut on here. I guess they need to do a few things, though, to distinguish the American guitars, the standard slash professional 2 from these, because these are really nice guitars. I'm going to go with this for now. That's probably more float than I wanted there, but no, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to take it back down a little bit and get it where I want it. Otherwise, it'll drive me nuts, and I'll drink a few beers tonight, and I'll be doing this then. Better to do it now in the sober daylight. Here we go. Let's try that. Let's see where we are now. I can tell it's maybe still not going to be enough. Just a little bit more. I just feel that that's going to be it. Just know. Oh, the tuning. Maybe I'll fast forward some of this. I don't know. You know, I like to watch videos. If I'm into something, you know, people that are into things like musical equipment or lawn care, there's another thing I'm really interested in. They will watch videos of people. There are videos all over the internet of people mowing their yards, or these guys, these these pros out mowing lawns. 30-minute videos of mowing, and they get tons of views. I watch them. And like here's something too that's kind of interesting. We're all going to be different on this, I guess. But I find when I'm watching the gear reviews for the instruments, I know people make a big deal of saying, I'm going to quit talking now, I'm going to play. I've heard everybody play these things. I really would actually rather hear people talk about the guitar. I want to know what they think about it. You know, tell me about the fret ends. Tell me about the weight. Just talk about it. Do you like it? I enjoy that. I mean, it's hard to tell what anything sounds like over YouTube anyway, honestly. Yeah, that's perfect. That is right where I want it. Okay. So, all right, the next thing to do, so we're at pitch now. Next thing to do is going to be to check the relief on the neck, right? So that's the next thing you do. You want to do things in this order. And so you're going to check that at the 8th fret. We're going to slide the feeler gauge between the string and the 8th fret. We're going to use the string as a straight edge. You probably have seen people do this. Normally, just put a capo on the end of the neck here. I'm going to try to slide this down where you can see what I'm doing here. I don't have a capo. So what I'm going to do, let me do it, and then I'm going to show you what I've done. I'm going to use two Fender, because we're working on a Fender guitar. I'm going to have to use Fender picks. I've got a Fender medium and a Fender heavy. You could use two heavies. And I'm going to put these together, and I'm going to wedge these under the string. We only need one string to be held down. We don't need them all. It's not like we're going to play the thing, right? So I'm going to wedge the thing, and I'm going to put this in the camera so you can see what I've done. But this will hold the E string down on the fret, the same as a capo would, and I can measure the action. And so even if you don't have a capo, most people can find a couple of picks. You see that? Right across the fret. If you have a nice thick pick, or a couple of nice thick picks, it will hold the string down against the fret, and that works great. So you don't need a capo. All right, so I've got my 8/1000 of an inch feeler gauge here, and I'm going to check this at the 8th fret, right? So I'm gonna tighten the neck up a little bit, right? And this is good. You don't have to. It's not like the Gibsons. I don't have to take a cover off. It's not like the old Fenders. Although I really like the traditional designs with the truss rod nut in the neck end. I find that a lot of times you can adjust those with a flathead without even taking the neck off, especially on the basses, without doing any damage to the wood. You do have to pull the pick guard up to do it. And yeah, this is easier. The easiest ones are the little wheels like they put on the Ernie balls, or those. I think didn't Peavey do that on the Eddie Van Halen's? Or Ernie Ball did too on the Eddie Van Halen's. But I'm going to tighten this up just a little bit. So look, here's how I like to do this. I like to take try to pull the tension off the neck while I'm doing this. So I'm going to put the thing kind of. I'm not going to bring the camera down. You can figure out how to do this, but I'm going to put the thing down kind of between my legs like this. I'm going to put the Allen key in here. Did they give me the right one? They did. And I'm gonna have to loosen the D string too a little bit to get this, so I can have enough room to actually move the Allen wrench. So all right, so I'm gonna wedge it kind of between my legs, and I'm gonna pull the neck this way, right? So that straighter. So I'm not having to do that with the truss rod. I'm gonna pull it in a position and then just tighten the nut up. You know, it's probably not necessary on a guitar like this one. Some it is. Like on the old Rickenbackers with those crazy collapsible style truss rods. If you don't do that, you can pop the fingerboards right off of those. I've got one that was done to, not by me. So yeah, this is turning nice and smooth too, I can tell already. All right, I'm gonna give it about 1/4 of a turn. I think that's gonna be plenty. Truss rod is very smooth. It's the first time I've adjusted it, but it's like butter, no issues there. You know, I'm really, really impressed with the quality of this guitar. I mean, they're knocking it out of the park. This is only one of these players that I have played. I never loved the Mexican standards, the old MIM stuff. I didn't like the pickups. They always seemed a little bit heavier. They just didn't feel right. I know a lot of people liked them. I didn't really like the basses either. But this thing feels like. This feels like one. People are saying this, but it does. This feels like one of the older American Fenders. Just a really, really nice guitar. And when I unboxed the thing, I was probably a little bit critical, but I'm not even going to dress these fret ends right now. And probably as the thing sits in our humidity, the fretboard's going to get bigger anyway. It's probably going to go in the other direction. I'm probably not going to have any fret sprout, but these frets are fine. If I put the little sock on my hand like Philip McKnight does, I don't think it would catch on this. So I know people have complained about that. I think that's more of a humidity issue. They're building those things down in Ensenada, Mexico. I don't know what they're not. That's a pretty temperate climate, though. I don't think it's as humid as it is here. But if you buy a guitar that was built there, they sand the fret ends off of it, and it's fine, and then they send it up to Canada. It's a totally different climate, or they send it out to Arizona. I talked to a tech out there once, and I was telling him, we never have fret sprout here. I never see it. He said, I never see a guitar that doesn't have it. So I think a lot of that is climate related. But you got to remember, you're buying for me, a $500 guitar that really doesn't need anything except to be set up with these 10s. And it was set up pretty good with the 9s. The action was a little bit low, but it was playable, no problem. No problem at all. It was really pretty good. All right, so let's see where we are now with this. Gone a little bit too far. I could probably leave it, and the neck may continue. The other thing too is maybe it's just my climate here. I don't find the necks move that much. People talk about setting them and leaving them for a day or 2 days or a week or whatever. Unless there's something wrong with the neck, they're not really moving that much when you get them set. It doesn't really concern me too much. When I set this now, I bet it stays like this until winter when it gets cold. But your mileage may vary. Just a little bit more, and I think we're going to be good to go. The only problem with sticking the Allen key down in here is that the Allen keys are pretty coarse. In other words, you have to turn the thing quite a bit to get it into the next part of the hole, and so the strings wind up getting in the way. So let's pull that out, and hopefully I'm not missing something. Trying to talk and do this again is tricky. I need to do more of this. I need to set up a bass. Anything is going to be easier than this though, or quicker, because you're not dealing with a tremolo like a Telecaster. So I'll probably my brother he ordered one of the Lake Placid Blue Telecasters at the same price as this. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm sure he'll bring that over for me to look at and set up, and I will set that up with 10s for him too. And hear that? When I turn one string, it's pitching the other one down. Let's see where we are on this. I think put our picks back in here. Well, let's get the picks oriented the right way. That's not good. Try this. That is dead on. That is good. And you can kind of eyeball this too. It's just, if you got the tool, why not use it? Yeah, that's great. And some people like a little more relief, but I find they set up pretty good like this. So really, the only thing I set the pickups last night to the Fender factory specs, which I think are 5/64ths in the pole piece to the bottom of the string on the low side, and 4/64ths on the high. That's probably not going to move much. I may check that again, and then you can adjust the taste after that. But But let's see where we are on intonation with this, because that's going to be the next thing. Well, I'm sorry. See where we are with action. We need to get this, make sure we're in tune. We'll check the action, because I'm going to bring it up a little bit from where it was. I don't like super low action, and if you do, this is not really the guitar for that. You know, you want something with a flatter fretboard. This is 9.5 inches radius, but it depends on what you're playing. And I can tell you, playing bass with stiffer strings and heavier action, you'll get used to whatever you play. You know, just because you pick a guitar up and you think, I can't play that, the action's too high or whatever, play it for a couple of weeks. You'll get used to it. You might find there's some advantages to that. Not real high action. I'm going to set this at 5/64 and 4/64. It's not high. In fact, the spec for this is, I didn't look, but this is probably the same as their other 9.5 inch guitars. It's 4/64 to 4/64, but their vintage spec, I think, for the reissues, now those I think are 9.5 inches now, but when they were 7.25, it was 4/64 to 4/64. So I'm going to measure at the 12th fret too, because I just like to do that. Every other manufacturer says that, but Fender, I think. I may have to get down here where I can see what I'm doing too. Or actually, I'm just going to put this in my lap. Just going to do this so I can see. And I use the light because these are such tiny markings on here. I'm going to use the one here. This is a Jim Dunlop version of this. The Stu Mac one's probably better. It's probably easier to see. But I can tell this is too low now. Yeah, so this right now is at about 3.5. It's not even to 4. So I'm going to bring this up a little bit with the Allen key that was included with the guitar. Bring that up just a little bit. So I'm going to do about half a turn on each of the bridge screws. And let's see where we are now. So we're not quite at 4 even. We're still just right at 4. So I'm going to go about another quarter of a turn. And the tuning doesn't have to be right on, just something close. So we're a little over. I'm gonna bring it up just a little bit more. Still a little bit low for me. Let's see where we are. That's pretty good. That is 5 or just under it. That's how low the action was on this, though. So you can see with kind of a normal picking action, I'm not getting any buzz at all. Now look, any guitar is going to buzz if you hit it hard enough with the pick. Rhett Shull did a great video with the guy from Righteous Guitars about string buzz. It's a really interesting video. You should watch that with headphones too, because I know I watch stuff through my computer speakers and it's hard to hear the fret buzz. But when, I think his name was Ben, when he's demoing the Sir guitar, especially after it's set back up, in those Gibson custom shops, you can hear when he's hitting those hard, you're getting a lot of string rattle. So I always read that people argue in the forums about whether or not a guitar can be set up without any buzz. Well, yeah, it can, but it depends on your picking technique. If you're hitting the strings hard, you'd have to have really crazy high action to not get any fret buzz at all and hear that acoustically. So part of that's just how people play. Guys that play with a light touch and these, you know, they're not going to hear a whole lot of ringing, buzz from the strings if the guitar's set up right. Yeah, this is at 3/64, so this is really, that's not the Fender Mexican guitar specification, is it? Can't be. I'm still not at 4. some pretty fine screws in here. The thread is pretty fine. As I'm adjusting this, I'm not getting a lot of movement at a time. Lets you get really precise. It's right at 4 there. Hear that when I hit it hard? But if I pick normal, you don't hear anything. I'm going to go up just a touch more because it's not even quite 4. I'm going to get this one up to about 5.2, and then probably a D, not quite 5, and then I'm going to drop the other ones down to 4. Let's see where we are. Yeah, it looks good. It's actually like 4.5. It's not even at 5. So I know this is too low. I'm going to bring it up a little bit. And I guess you could set these to the radius of the fretboard once you get the 2 E strings done. If you have one of those little radius, understring radius things that Stuart McDonald makes, those are pretty cool. God, their stuff is so expensive though. Wow. Cool stuff though. It's very specialized. That's really what you're paying for. If those things were used by carpenters or whatever, they'd be cheap and you'd be able to buy them at Home Depot. But because they're such specialized tools, they got to make the cost up from a relative few people. Right? It's not even at 4 yet. Not even at 4 yet. It's like textbooks when you get into like medical school and stuff. Or law school, the textbooks are crazy expensive, but yeah, they have to make that cost up with just a few people. All right, so that's pretty good. Let's see how we're doing. There's not, this is probably why there were so many winds on here, on these, down here on the D string. Here, you can hear just, because these string posts are not staggered, it's not really quite pulling enough tension down on the D string. I have to remember that when I change strings again and put more winds on there to try to walk it down. Because the way they're made, you can't really, it sort of forces the strings up to the middle of the post. So you really need more string winds on to sort of push the thing down lower so you get a better break over the nut, if that makes sense. So a little tip when you're putting the strings on these things. These tuners are fine though. I do like the Fender locking tuners. I think those are pretty cool. Or I guess any locking tuner, but if it's a Fender, it needs to have a Fender part on it for me. I'm just OCD. That's why I'm putting Fender strings on here. Actually overshot that by about that much. Let me see where we're on the B. I know it's low. Not real low. Actually, the higher strings were closer than the low strings to being where I want them. So yeah, this is the next step. You don't want to do the intonation until last because that's going to be affected by the string height. So you want to get the relief and the string height set first. Looks good. Let's see where we're on the E. We're close. I mean, the E's just about dead on. It doesn't really need much. Get just that much and see where we are. Yeah, it looks good. Let's tune everything back up, make sure we're where we need to be. So my daughter played jazz band in the 5th grade. So I sent her to school, she played bass. So I was teaching her some songs here. And she told her, she was playing clarinet. And she told her teacher, oh, I'm playing bass at home. So her teacher said, oh, you got to play bass in the jazz band. So she did, and that was fun. She did that for 2 years. Anyway, so I sent her to school with a Squire 50s, one of the 50s, classic vibe 50 Squires. Actually, Lake Placid blue, same color as this. It's a really neat color. And I sent her with a tuner. I think the Sonic Research, but I've got a Boss tuner too. I sent her with a pedal tuner. And she would come home sometimes and she'd tell me the tuner didn't work today. Her and her band teacher both tried and they couldn't get it to work. And sometimes it would work and sometimes it wouldn't. And I thought, that's odd. I said, of course it works. What are you doing? You know, you have to plug the thing in with the cord. Are you plugging it in? Yes. Anyway, so I find out later she's home one day and she tries to tune the thing up and she forgets to turn the volume knob up, right? It's funny, you know, we take a lot of things for granted because you just know how to do it. But somebody that's never done it before, things that seem obvious may not be, especially for a little kid. So yeah, she was playing through the tuner without the volume up. And sometimes it would be up. It would just depend on where she left it. Anyway, she knows how to do that now, I think. And she's still playing here at home. Actually, she's starting a little band with her cousin, which is cool. They're learning songs. She actually has a Player Series P bass. One of those sage green ones. I don't think they're doing that color anymore, and it's a really great bass. It really is. It's light too. For people out there watching this that aren't bass players, the average Fender bass weight is probably around 9 pounds. Really, probably more than that. So you can find lighter ones, but anyway, this one is less than 8 pounds. It's like 7 pounds, 13 ounces or something. It's the lightest bass we have. Now, when you get into some of the chambered stuff, like if you buy Sadowski or something, you know, those things can be considerably lower. But for non-chambered alder body, it's pretty light for a modern instrument. I mean, I picked that one. That was at Sweetwater. So they're not all that light, but... Oh yeah, it plays great. Yeah, relief looks good. Yeah, it's great. So let's see where the intonation is on this. It was just about dead on with the original strings and the super low action. I'm still not sure. I don't want to pull that bridge down just a little bit more. I'm afraid though it's going to mess up the action and everything that I just spent so long setting. Oh, stupid tremolos. Who uses a tremolo? Let's see. I don't think the hardtail strats look right though, so those kind of bug me. Well, let's do the intonation. I may fix that later, but okay. So yeah, I took a quick break there because I actually set the springs on the tremolo and checked the action again. It was going to drive me crazy. Sorry. Now I really got it right where I want it now. I'm happy. All right, so the next thing to do is check the intonation on this. And I'm going to get rid of the little TC Electronics tuner. So it's just not as accurate. You won't be able to see this because this is on top of my amp on the pedal board, but I'm going to use the Sonic Research strobe tuner for this. And I got it on now, so I can glance over and see this. So let's get the thing in tune first. Hear my dog whining again. Someone needs to come home and feed him. He actually is not a very food-driven dog, which is kind of interesting for us because our last dog, a little beagle, it was the most food-driven animal I've ever seen. It's just, she would inhale food. We had to get her one of those bowls with the relief thing in the bottom of it so she couldn't eat too fast. And she figured that out pretty quick. But and it didn't really help that much. Or maybe it did. Maybe it would have been worse. So there are a couple of different ways that people do this. I find that if you check the harmonic at the 12th fret, right? I'm going to get that in tune. And really, you need to do this in the playing position too. It does make a difference. So let's just do it that way. So I'm going to check it at the 12th fret. You can try different pickups too. Sometimes the tuner will be more stable in one position than another. I'm going to go back to the neck pickup. And I'm going to get if you get the Sonic Research tuner to quit moving or come anywhere close to stopping moving, it's going to be pretty much, it's going to be on. You're not going to hear any amount you could be off. All right, so I've got the 12th fret harmonic in tune on the tuner. Now I can check the open string. It's, I mean, just I guess you call that slightly sharp. It's not. I mean, it's waving towards sharp. It's not really turning. If you know that tuner, it's got a little wheel on it with LEDs. It's a strobe tuner, but the wheel will spin one way or the other until it's in tune. When it's in tune, it'll just stop, you know, but it's hard to get it where it's not oscillating at all. Again, it's just so accurate. So I've got the 12th fret harmonic on. So if I hit this and it's a little bit sharp, instead of trying to mess around with the tuner, because it's gonna stick in the nut some. This thing is so accurate when you're dealing with this minute amount of tuning difference. If it's sharp, I'm just going to grab the string and pull it a little bit to try to pull it a little bit flatter, and then keep turning up on this side. So I'm not going to wind the key back down unless when I pull the string, it's not going flat enough for me, if that makes sense. Anyway, so now I'm going to check the note at the 12th fret, and I'm going to try not to press down too hard or wiggle my finger, because you can, just by fretting the note and moving your finger a little bit from side to side or fretting harder, you can cause it to go sharp or flat. So I'm going to try to do something that would be, I mean, it's dead on. If anything, it is just a touch flat, just a touch. So I may pull, so if the string, if the harmonic is in tune and the 12th fret note is flat, I'm going to actually, I mean, did I say it was sharp or flat? I can't remember now. Did we say it was sharp or flat? It was flat. So if it's flat, I'm actually going to, let me check that again. I can't remember, I'm talking. Did I say it was sharp or flat? Probably edit this so that I won't look like I'm losing my mind. Now it's going to be right on. Because the other thing too that's a good idea, if you press these strings down like I'm doing here, to kind of bend down this sort of witness point where the string goes over the bridge saddle, you want to really get that. You want to really get that sort of seated in position. I bet all the strings went flat when I did that too. It's another one of the things that causes the string to keep going out of tune until it gets seated. It's a little bit flat, so I'm going to have to actually turn the tuner. It's hard to tell because when it's flat, just put my hand on the neck and touching the tuner pulls it sharp. Just because the neck moves, but again, it's just so accurate. Okay, if anything, it's slightly flat. So if the string is flat, so if the 12th fret harmonic's in tune, but the 12th fret is flat, you're going to shorten the string a little bit, right? So, and if it's sharp, you're going to lengthen the string. So I'm going to shorten it. So I'm going to move the bridge saddle closer to the headstock, and just a little bit. It really doesn't need much. You know, you can really wear a set of strings out setting the guitar up like this too. If you keep messing around with it, you'll eventually break a string. Hopefully we won't do that. if we were doing the Telecaster without the tremolo, we would be done by now. Sharp. You can see I'm sharp, and I'm just pulling the string. You can bend them too, but now it's gone way flat just from that. So. And this is just, you know, how picky do you want to get about this? You know, you're probably not going to hear a lot of difference. I mean, if you have normal hearing. If you're like the Rick Beato's kid, you could probably hear it. That kid is a freak of nature. Although Rick claims he can teach anybody to do that, if they're young enough. I think he claims that. Maybe he doesn't. Seriously, if you haven't seen that video, search on perfect pitch and watch the video of Rick Beato with his kid. He's got the little kid, and the kid's turned around so you can't see the piano. Rick's playing the piano, and he starts out just playing notes. And this thing's way sharp. Now, you know, I don't think the bridge, I don't think the saddle was pushed into position. One of the problems with these vintage saddles is with this no string tension on them, they'll move around quite a bit. So I'm gonna have to lengthen the string because it's actually sharp. But yeah, so Rick Beato's kid can't see the piano, and Rick's playing these notes first, and he's just calling the note out instantly, which is pretty cool. I mean, that's hard to do, right? But then he starts playing chords, and the kid can name all the notes in the chord, or we can tell him what the chord is, but he can name all the notes in it. And they're not just like root third 5 chords either. He's playing these really dense chords. And the kid can pick out all the notes in them just instantly. It's just, if you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's at the same time, it's amazing and depressing. Depressing because you'll never be able to do that. Right? You'll never be able to do it. Not if you're old enough to watch this video and enjoy it. You're too old. Rick will tell you that. You got to start when you're very young to learn how to do that. Like anything, though, I don't think I've ever met a really good musician that didn't start playing when they were a little kid. There's some things you just can't learn when you get older. Golf, the golf swings for most people. There are very few good golfers that didn't start playing when they were a little kid. Yeah, this is pretty sharp. That bridge saddle must have been, it was pulled back and I pushed the thing into position, so it's this screwdriver. I need to move the other one. Keep grabbing the wrong one. This is when you snap strings, when I keep doing this. It keeps getting tuned down and tuned back up. And eventually the string just can't take it. But that's okay. We'll put a new set of strings on if we bust these. Again, you shouldn't have to do this again. You know, not really. At least not these macro adjustments. You know, it should be pretty fine tuning after this. I mean, it's so close. I probably wouldn't have to worry about it, but I'm going to. This video is going to be way too long. I'm going to have to edit it. I would watch it. I mean, not me, but if somebody did a video like this. Like Dave, his videos are long. I'm not as entertaining as Dave. I'm not pretending that I am. I'm just saying that it is possible to do long setup videos. Because it takes a while to do. You know, it's funny, I've got a Les Paul Jr. with the wraparound tailpiece. And you know, there's no way to get that thing intonated right on. It's funny to kind of worry this much about it. Really, I mean, again, unless you're Rick Beato's kid, it'd probably drive him nuts if it wasn't right on. I don't know, would that be a good thing? you know, to go through life like that? Because everything's out of tune. You know, does it drive him crazy? You know, like somebody like Einstein, somebody that's like smarter than everybody else, a lot smarter. You know, does it drive them crazy having to be around people like us? I bet it does. All right, so this is pretty sharp on the B string too. So I'm going to pull this saddle back, and again, I'm grabbing the wrong screwdriver. This is tedious, so I'm going to speed this up. I'm going to turn the video off and set the rest of the intonation on these, and then come back with some final thoughts. Okay, a few final thoughts in between the dog barking. The unimpressively non-food driven, or maybe impressively non-food driven Dalmatian. Yeah, so I just set the intonation on the rest of the strings, and it's just kind of tedious, especially with this floating bridge. Everything's moving around, kind of settling in, but the strings and the bridge maybe still a little bit. Anyway, I got it pretty close with my Sonic Research ST200 tuner. And again, if you get the note in tune at the 12th fret harmonic, and then the 12th fret note is sharp, you want to lengthen the string, so you're going to pull the saddle back. If the 12th fret note is flat, you want to shorten the string, so you're going to push the saddle forward. And you just kind of play with that until you get it as close. You're never going to get it exactly right, but you get it as close as you can, because part of it just depends on how hard you're pressing the string down, and everybody plays differently. So yeah, you just want to get it kind of close. And you have to, these bridge saddles, so if I'm gonna, let's say I wanted to lengthen this saddle on the E string, this type of saddle, you have to actually back the screw out a little bit, which would make the string longer, but these springs are not really strong enough to push this saddle around too much. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But what I'll do, once I go ahead and slack off the screw a little bit, I'll actually give it a little push, right, from the screw end, just to make sure it's pushing that saddle forward. I'm sorry if I'm shortening the string, just to make sure that I move that saddle forward. When you pull them back, obviously it's going to be pulling back against the bridge plate, so you don't have to do that. And then again, I'll make sure I'm kind of pressing down, just to make sure I'm seating that witness point over the saddle. But yeah, it's set up. You can see what it looks like after it's set up here now. And the intonation's pretty close. I just kicked on the Fender Princeton amp, the 64 Princeton, not original 64, the new Fender 64 original. You know, everything I know is copyrighted material, so I'm scared to even play anything. I don't have any original ideas with music, so especially on guitar. Oh, better be careful. But so yeah, I think it's in tune and it plays great. The action's actually low, probably still lower than I would play it. I'm not sure I got it quite to 5/64 on the 3 lower strings. It was set very low from the factory. But so once you get a guitar set up like this would be fine for a lot of people, I think. It'd be fine for me. I will tweak them here and there. Every guitar is a little bit different, and they're all going to require their own bit of fine tuning if you get them, and it depends on the player. Some people have different picking styles. Some people need a little bit higher action, a little bit lower. Some people like thinner strings, thicker strings, you know, so everybody's a little bit different. That's why it's good to be able to set your own guitars up, because you can set it up the way you want it then, and if it needs an adjustment, you could just make the adjustment. You really just need a few simple tools, and I'm not talking about doing fret work. That's another thing. You need some special tools for that, and that's something that's sort of irreversible if you mess it up, if you start grinding on frets. But what we're doing here, as long as you don't go cranking stuff down like the truss rod too tight, go a little bit at a time, you know, anything you do to it is reversible. So, and there are tons of videos on YouTube to show people how to do this. So I just thought it'd be kind of entertaining to show, or maybe interesting to show, converting one of these player series. And this would apply to really any guitar, but let's say any Strat, to convert it over from the factory 9s to the 10s. So we still have Fender strings on here with the Fender pick. We even have a Fender chord which is actually a Whirlwind cable, but I do like this cable. I've always liked these Whirlwinds. They don't kink. They don't kink up like like some of the other cords, the other Fender cords. And this one's short too. It's about 10 feet, so it's perfect here in my office. Oh. And then this is going into the Fender 64 Princeton. So I think, yeah, Fender strings. I think everything is Fender. I like that. Nice and orderly. It appeals to me. Yeah, sounds good, huh? So yeah, that's a basic setup and converting a guitar, tremolo guitar with a floating bridge over from 9s to 10s. And which I would encourage anybody with one of these guitars to do. I think you'll find the 10s just play better. They're easier to play. You don't feel like you're tripping over the strings when you're picking. I don't know. You know what? If I played 9s and I got a guitar with 8s, I'd be saying the same thing about 9s. So forget all that. If you like 9s, play the 9s. You know, that's the great thing about this. Everybody's got their own way of doing it, right? Anyway, so good luck.